So deep on the internet in the Japanese world, there is a eye-destroyingly pink website that contains two patches for the AIM8 ROM, or BIOS ROMs, one for the AP and the AS, and one for the AS2 and the AP2. And like most 486s of the time, these computers cannot use hard drives that are bigger than about 500 megabytes, roughly around there. There's a specific number, but I don't have that in my head right now. But anyway, there is a patch out there to allow a bigger hard drive to be used on this, and a couple people on the NFG forums have figured that out. Those two people being Samson and Famiak, who are also on Discord, and I'll link the Discord and the thread on the NFG forums. If anybody needs help with PC98 hardware, just come in the Discord and ask us for help, and we'll be glad to help. Anyway, so Samson was the first one to get this patch working on his AS, which is a bit different than the AS2. And using the same method he used to patch his BIOS, I did the same thing with mine and the AS2 patch. And I came up with this. This is from BuyIC now. And since I don't have an EEPROM burner, I had to order it from China pre-burned. So that's what that was. And obviously it didn't work, because otherwise I would have made a video about it already. So anyway, since then, another person named Famiak got the AS2 and AP2 patch working. And he got working on his computer, so that's pretty neat. And then his computer decided it wanted to stop working. Similarly to mine, his AP2 suffered some pretty bad capacitor damage, and so I helped him repair his computer by buzzing out a couple of traces and figuring out where those traces go on my machine. And he put bodge wires where they went from on my machine onto his machine, and it started booting again. So in return, he sent me a couple EEPROMs for my computer to install the English and the IDE patch. So that's really nice of him. So you might find that something is a little bit different on my motherboard than last time. As you can see, I took the memory chips off right here that used to have that bodge wire going from here to this IC over here. Well, the reason for that is that I had some corruption on YEs for whatever reason, or E's. And I thought I had some bad memory or something. Of course, there's no memory checker program for these computers, so I tried to simplify it and just remove the extra memory, because that's not actually the full system memory. The full system memory is basically these chips down here. What those are, that's like the base memory for all AIM8s, and these four slots, or these four soldering points, are for expanded memory for the higher end models of the AIM8 series, such as like the U8W or whatever I have here. That's supposed to come with 5.6 megabytes. I think there's also a model that comes with 7.6, but if you remove those, it goes to the base value of 3.6 megabytes. And that's perfectly fine for what I use this for. I don't use it for Windows anyway, so there's no real point in having it. I guess in a way it simplifies my machine. So, as you can see, the BIOS ROM is just right here in front of the CPU slot, and it's socketed, which is pretty handy. The AS and the AP do not have socketed BIOS ROMs. They actually have the BIOS ROM on the CPU board down here, and the CPU is like moved over here. So it's a bit more of a hassle to replace the BIOS on that, because you need to get a soldering iron out. However, this will be easy. As you can see, my BIOS revision is PhD 0102, and he did send me two different BIOS ROMs. There's a 01 and an 04, or 02 and an 04. And I guess those are just two different revisions of the BIOS. So I'm going to try replacing it with the BIOS revision I do have, which is the 02. So let's do this. I'm just going to use the screwdriver here to kind of pry up on it. Pry up on one side because I'm dumb. I wish to break things today, apparently. Okay, that's not going to work. So I'm going to get an old tool out that I used when I was repairing that Nintendo. My little miniature pry bar here. Hope I can fit it in there. Oh. Alright. Also make note of where pin 1 is, obviously. It's on this side here. Does not appear that I've bent the shit out of my ROM chip, so that's good. So let's pop in this other EEPROM here. Let's just pop this sucker in here. That side's in. Let me get a better view. Push it in there. Alright. So the BIOS upgrade is installed. Let's see if it works. So luckily, since this is an A-mate, I should be able to, well, obviously I can run the computer without the scaler up on top of there. Let's see if it'll make a post beep. Oh yeah. Alright. Let's see what comes up on the screen. Well, actually I know what's going to come up on the screen. It's just going to complain at me. So let's reset this with Graph 2. As booting with all my memory. Let's check out the BIOS ROM, or the BIOS screen. Wow, look at that. It's in English. Alright, since the BIOS menu is in English, let's take another look at it. So maybe if you have an As2 or need help with the BIOS here, this video could help if just by going through the BIOS settings. All the settings should be in the same spot, so that should help. In the first menu here, we got shell settings. I'm not sure what the first one does. It's I don't know, something to do with the memory. However, I don't have 16 megabytes or megabits or whatever installed, so yeah, I guess it's a Windows 3.1 specific option here, so if you're using Windows 3.1, you want to use it, as it says down there. Then you got the sound, which you can disable the onboard sound or disable the sound BIOS. Obviously, you want to be using it unless you're using an external sound card, like if you wanted to have an 86 board inside your computer. ROM Basic, you can turn it on and off right here. If you do not have a booting device, you can boot straight into ROM Basic. Sort of like the UV, but it's a little bit more limited as it doesn't have a monitor built into the Basic. I've already tried. I tried to look at the soft switches on this computer using that. That'd be interesting. So we got the software versions of the hardware switches on the UV, but here we can turn on and off the plasma display. I'm not sure why you'd want to use this. Keep set as do not use, because usually if you set this to use, it would try to use the digital outputs on like an older model. And obviously this model does not have a digital output, it only has the analog RGB output. And you can also set the floppy disk number assignment. So if you had external drives but you wanted to use those as your primary drives, so like you wanted to boot 5 1/4 inch games on an A-mate here, you can get an external bay for 2 5 1/4 inch drives and switch it to be external as 1 and 2, so you can boot straight off of those floppy disk drives. However, I don't have that, so I don't need to. RS-32 stuff, or 232C stuff, so that's serial stuff. I don't use that. So then you got to choose between the hard disk sector size. 512 seems good to me. Color mode setting, extended and standard. I think extended is the CRCG graphics, or like the UV, the 16 color, while standard would be the 8 color for the standard modes. I don't think that has anything to do with the 256 color mode on the A-mates, or the 9821, so just leave that as extended here. Terminal mode specification, I'm not sure what that does. Probably something to do with basic. Oh, I guess you can terminal mode for basic. I guess you could use this as a terminal. I'm not entirely sure. Number of text lines on your screen. Obviously, you want that to be as high as possible. More text is good. Memory switch, store and defaults. So that's sort of like the UV. If you switch it to defaults, then every time you start the computer up, the memory switches, which are controlled by a DOS program, will be set to defaults. Obviously, you want to have that set to store if you change anything. Otherwise, it will reset and you'll have to change it every single time you start the computer. Sort of like the memory on the UV. Internal hard drive, of course you want to use it. Unless you're using an external hard drive, then you just turn it off. Then you got the GDC clock speed. Half speed is what you will want to use for most games. 5 MHz will cause glitches in some older games, including displaying 2 copies of the screen at once, which is kind of crazy looking. Floppy disk capacity, setting your types of floppy disk drives. And then you got SCSI DMA setting here. I don't have SCSI, so whatever. And there's no internal SCSI, so it doesn't matter. Floppy disk drive motor stopping, auto. I guess you could turn it to keep on, so your floppy disk motors keep on spinning, but obviously you want the thing to stop it, why not? Compatibility and high speed for DMA. I'm not sure what actually that changes, but it defaults to compatibility, so internal RAM plus disabled and enabled. So it's just switching on and off the RAM space between 512K to 640K. I think you'd want to switch it to 512K if you're using the bank memory, where basically the first 512K is used for conventional memory, and that last 128K is swapped out between banks on your external card. So obviously you want to have that enabled at all times, especially on an AIM8 because you already have at least 3 megabytes installed. So CPU speed, low speed, high speed, medium speed, you've seen that before if you've seen my videos. You got power saving. You can turn off the hard drive spinning after 15 minutes or so, or do not set. Obviously I have a compact flash, so that does not matter at all. I/O device settings, CRT scan settings, I'll just see here. Effective when, alright. So I guess it's only effective when the built-in, or the add-on card for the Windows accelerator is enabled, which I have on this computer, but progressive scan is obviously better. And that's the address for the Windows accelerator. Hard drive interface unit, I'm not sure. I guess it detects if it's connected anyway. No, actually, okay, let's just turn it on and off. So if you have those hard drive interface units, maybe you can need to turn that on, but I think those are for SASE hard drives, and there's no spot to install that on this machine, so it doesn't matter. Invalid setting, I guess don't use that at all. Resolution set. So there is an expansion card for this that's called the H98. It's for higher resolution and color modes. I think it's like a derivative of, or something that came from the H98 PCs from NEC. It's like a higher resolution for like CAD and stuff like that. You can get a expansion card and use that video mode. However, there's only one spot you want to stick that in your C-bus, and it specifies on the back of the computer. If you stick it into the wrong slot, you can damage your computer, and that's not a good thing. So anyway, that's just a look at the system setup BIOS menu here. Get all the settings and quit here. So now, another thing we can do now is use a bigger hard drive. So my compact flash is a 512 megabyte model, but I have the partition set to 470 megabytes, so I can keep it within the capacity of the compact flash. So I did not keep the install I made on that last video because that actually did cause instability by just chopping off the last bit of your address space on that partition, because DOS does not like check the entire size of your disk every time you run check disk. It just checks like the beginning of the partition table or whatever, what the specifications for your partition is, and when you try adding stuff to it and it goes off the end of your partition, well, I mean, it's kind of a problem. I tried adding a game to my compact flash, and it complained rather loudly, saying that the system disk was not valid anymore. It's sort of like just sticking an invalid floppy disk and it'll complain at you. So what I did instead is I made another partition, I guess, or another disk drive image on an emulator that's the right size, installed DOS into it, copied all the Yachty stuff and all the games onto that, then put it on a compact flash, and then that's how I got this right here. And that's what I'm going to do. I have a 1 gigabyte compact flash sitting right here. Now I will do that to that one and see if we can get that to work. Alright, so I'm going to go over how I made the partition or the image for my hard drive or my compact flash. Let's open up the emulator that I did it in. This is NEC Project 21W X64, which is the go-to emulator for PC98s nowadays. And right now, obviously, it's running the same image that my computer is running, and it's a little bit slower with this BGAM program. I'm not entirely sure the reason for that. So anyway, what we're going to do is open up a new hard drive here. Well, I called it Yachty Junior because it's smaller than Yachty, but let's go to new disk and emulate here, new disk, hard disk image. We'll just stick it somewhere. Let's just do 1 gig HD, I don't know. 1 gigabyte HD. I'll just do 950 just to be safe, because I tried putting 500 on that 512 megabyte compact flash, and obviously it didn't work because megabytes, all that crap. So I'll just make it 925 so that I don't have to do this all over again, because it does require me to copy a lot of files around. It's kind of a pain in the butt. So it will automatically do all this stuff. Sector size 512. It'll get your CHS stuff figured out. It'll create a new disk. Obviously we can go to the IDE 0 and load that up. The 1GB HD. I named this one Fuck because it was a pain in the ass. Let's reset it now. It'll probably complain very loudly at us. Or not. Okay, so it's not a system disk, obviously. So what we're going to do now we have our 925 megabyte image, is to open up MS-DOS. So I do have disk images for this. You can find it elsewhere if you want. And we'll install DOS. Blah blah blah. I can't read any of this. Maybe I'll go over how I do the machine translation while running it on real hardware one of these days. Using my capture card, obviously. So it should be formatting the image right now. Alright, so now it's asking me how big my partition should be. 924, obviously. That'd be good. Give it a high there. Now it should be... oh, it's formatting. Okay. I'm not sure what it's doing exactly. It was getting the hard drive prepared at first, now it's formatting. Now it's rebooting? Okay. Alright, so I guess it has to reboot to set up the disk. So we're going to put it in the directory called DOS, obviously. Tell it yes. It's copying disk 1, and then we'll do a bunch of disk swaps because there is a lot of disks. So we got to put disk 2 in there now. So there's 8 disks in total because Japanese, I guess. Alright, so it should be done, and it's listing off the specifications here, what it has and what it doesn't have, or what it detected. It'll automatically generate a config.sys and all this crap that obviously I don't really care for. Let's eject the disk. And we should have a booting 925 megabyte drive here. Alright, so don't worry about MS-DOS shell. It's not going to be doing anything that it's doing right now after we're done with it. So let's close the emulator. So there is a program we use called Disk Explorer, which is used for opening up hard drive images of this sort. And let's go down to our hard drive here, the 1GB HD.NHD here. And so it will ask you what kind of hard drive you want to load up, and it should come up automatically. So this is what we got now. Alright, so now we got the 1GB HD here loaded up in Disk Explorer. We'll open up Disk Explorer again. Just open it up. It's called Edit Disk there, so this is the latest image I took of my disk, so I should have all my save games and stuff from whatever games I've been playing on it. And since this one is just a HDI, we'll have to open it up as a manual hard drive image here. Since it doesn't have a header, and it has to search for the IPL stuff, and it'll find it, and you can open it up. And there's all the stuff that I have on my current disk image that I run on my PC98. So what I'm going to do is that I've tried to just basically nuke everything off of a fresh install and just copy everything over. However, I think the version that they used for Yachty or whatever is a slightly different version of DOS compared to the one that's built in right here. So there's a couple things you have to leave in here, such as the command.com IOSys and MS-DOS sys. Those things you will have to leave there, otherwise it will not boot. So all this other stuff we can get rid of and just leave that. There's a couple things in the DOS folder that's a little bit different. At least I think the Yachty. There's a couple like auto execs clean and UMB or CLN and UMB here. You want to copy those over. Unfortunately, I don't know if there's any way to compare these two. There's a couple things on the fresh install, such as MemMaker, that I don't think are included with Yachty, so you can leave those on there. I think that's mostly it, just the two auto exec things for like the clean boot from NHD, I think it's called. I'm not entirely sure what the program is. The boot controller program. So we'll just stick with that. That should be fine. So basically everything on here, besides the command IO and MS-DOS, so get rid of that. Get rid of IO and get rid of command. Copy all this stuff over, and basically all the folders, I just copy them over one by one, because except for the games folder, because If this program starts copying between two windows with an item that's too large, it tends to freeze up, so I just do one folder at a time. It's a little bit time consuming, but it works. So while you have the disk image open, might as well do things that you forgot to do before, such as put bin hunt into the NSFW folder. So let's just do that real quick. Gotta sort the hentai out from the real good stuff. Alright, so now everything's copied over, and if all went right, it should run just like it did before with this new image here. Alright, since we had the image open in the emulator last time before we closed out of it, it should just boot right in. It should be the same image that's trying to load up, so let's just try that out. Looks like it's booting into something. Okay, yep, that looks about right. Hit W to skip past that, and it should boot up my BM with all my games here. If I scroll over to where the games are, the game should be there. I should see stuff like Quarth. That's good. Should boot up fine. We can turn that down a little bit. Alright, so that looks pretty good. Let's see how much hard drive space we got on this now. We got 968 megabytes. So hopefully this will fit on my 1 gigabyte compact flash. If it doesn't, I'll have to redo it all over again, because I'm too lazy to actually do the math between megabytes and megabytes. Well, there's one thing I did not mention so far. What we made was an NHD file. So right here we got 1 gigabyte hard drive .nhd right here. And we can't just directly image that to a compact flash disk, so what we need to do, or what the NHD is that it has a header on it, so emulators can determine what the CHD and how to read the image file is. Of course, we don't want that header when we're putting it into an actual computer, because that actually is determined by the hardware and not the header, so we need to get rid of that. So I got Hex Workshop Editor here. We can just open that up in here. Let's open up our 1 gigabyte HD.nhd, and let's see here. We gotta make it so, say it's 16. Make it easier, we can do the offsets in decimal. And the first 512 bytes will be the header. So this up to here, from 0 to 200 or 512 or 511. What the fuck? Okay, I'm being stupid again. It needs to be 0 to 15 because 0 it starts with 0. So 0 to 15, so it'd be 0, 16, 32, 48. So it's more even. We'll have 512 right here. So 0 to 511 need to go away. I shouldn't do that. So 0 through 511 are the header for the NHD image, and everything after that is what the regular hard drive would say, so IPL stuff, or whatever initial program load would be right here, and that's what the computer would read to start DOS. Anyway, this needs to get out of here. We can delete it. Just delete it. So now we're starting where it should, and we can save it as... maybe. Save it as 1 gigabyte HD.image, since now it's just a raw image. Bam, now we have an image file. Now I have my 1 gigabyte compact flash installed, or plugged into my computer, and it's drive H, and this is what I had on it before. Let's just go ahead and format this sucker. Come on. Windows 10, you're stupid. You know when you're in a drive and you hit up one folder, why does it like dump you to the desktop and all this shit? Windows 10 is just fucking stupid. So since I have it formatted as a 550 megabyte or 400 whatever the fuck, 541 megabyte partition, we need to reallocate it so it can just be used here. Let's delete this volume. Use the entire volume. So this is what we use to, or what I use to burn or write this image to the disk here. It's disk H. Open up the image file for a 1 gigabyte hard drive here, and just write it. It would have complained by now if it was too big, so this should be good. It's writing to it right now. Alright, so now I got my 1 gigabyte card written, so let's throw it in here and see if it'll boot. Hopefully it does. That would mean it'd be very easy for me. Of course, I still have the ridiculous tape and cardboard set up for my adapter in there. Gotta wind up and slap it in there. Alright, let's see what it does. Alright, so it did boot. Let's see. Alright, so it booted without complaining, so that's good. Of course, we have this. Blah blah blah. Uh-oh. 500. Is that 500 free? Let's see here. Alright, so it sees 968 megabytes free, or total. Alright. That's good. Okay, so we have 500 megabytes free. That's what that is. That's good. So this is working. Let's open up Quarth and see what, games or whatever, and see if it will work right. Now, please forgive the flickering. This is in 31 kilohertz mode, so that means it's going to be running at 75 hertz, which is way faster than 60 hertz on my camera. So that is working good. Let's open up as something a little bit more picky. Well, I guess that there's not much that's more picky, but fuck it, whatever. Let's open up Flame Zapper. Alright, so everything looks like it's working very well. Okay, that's good. So there's one more thing we gotta do before this is complete. Yachty obviously has a program that's built into it, and it was used on most images, that allows modern computers to see what's on the hard drives. Basically, it allows the partition table, I think, for both PC98 DOS and regular MS-DOS to coexist on one disk, since they live on different parts of the disk. So, let's see here. Let's go to Tools. We got, so I know I can just type in AT here. Fuck. Okay, that's not going to work the way I thought it would be. Alright, so it's convert 98 AT here, and that's an executable file. What this does is allows your modern computer to see what's on the hard drive that's on your PC98, so it's easier to swap things in and off your hard drive. Just stick the compact flash into your reader, pop some games on there without having to download the entire image and modify the image and then re-upload the entire image. You're just able to modify it on the fly. So let's just run that. And it should point out your available partitions that you can do this to. Obviously, you can do that one, so we'll hit yes. Alright, so it already finished and closed out. So now this image should be able to be read, or this compact flash should be able to be read from modern PCs for easy modification. And so I guess that's just how I got a good image onto my 98 without any sort of hoopla that I did last time that would make the computer a little bit angry if you do certain things. So anyway, that's just this this BIOS update stuff, and big thanks to Samson and Famiac over on NFG forums for figuring this stuff out, because I never would have. And I guess that's a nice thing about these machines, since they're more like Macintosh computers in a way, since they have specific models with specific features, is that when somebody makes a modification for one model, it will apply to a whole slew of machines that have mostly the same hardware. Unlike PC, like, you don't want to modify the BIOS for one motherboard, because all the motherboards could use a different BIOS. It's all just a wacky Western shootout and crap like that. So anyway, if anybody here in the audience at this point has an A-Mate and they want to have this bigger hard disk support and all that good stuff, I suggest you check out the link below to the thread where they talk about these two patches and all that good stuff, and see if you can make yourself an EEPROM. That's beyond my skill, but this is just a demonstration of that, I suppose. Anyway, have a good day.